This repeater is, it's got a lot of history. It goes back to about 1975. It was started in a garage at the corner of East Main Street and Westview Drive in eastern Wallingford. That was where Tom Cullen, K1WXK, lived. And he built this thing out of a VHF engineering transmitter.
Is that Tom up there? Is that Tom up there on the street?
Yeah, that's Tom. Sorry about that. That's my grandson. Tom, let's see, he cobbled together a repeater with a VHF engineering transmitter. That was a company selling kits of VHF, UHF receivers, transmitters. So he used one of their transmitters and a Spectrum receiver. He set it up on 147.03. And it was very interesting because Tom's older brother was a motorcycle guy. And the motorcycle was about 10 feet away from the repeater. And when he would rev the motorcycle, it would vibrate the repeater. So you could actually, as if you had a microphone in the garage, you could hear the motorcycle. It's very interesting. Shortly after Tom started, a few people came along to help with equipment and money. And fortunately, one of those guys is still here, Eric Olson, KA1JL. At that time, WA1CCR. And there was also Al Paz, WA1WVA, Doug Brown, WA1YHL. And the four of them sort of got this repeater going. It eventually moved to Schoolhouse Road, which is right in here. That's the main drag that we turn off of to come in here. And it was at Schoolhouse Road, almost exactly across the street from where Cheshire Road comes off of that. That piece of property where it comes off of Schoolhouse Road, that's town, what's the word I want? Open space, yeah. Anyway, across from that is a house, and a ham that was a member of the club, Paul Boardman, WA1YAX, lived in that house. And he said, well, you can bring it over and put it in the chicken coop. And he had a huge chicken coop. And we put it out there, and we put a 100-watt light bulb inside of the wooden cabinet to keep the repeater warm. And shortly after we went for an official call sign, at that time the FCC was giving out call signs for repeaters. And our call sign was WR1AKG. And if we were to go in the backyard of that house, there's probably a block of cement in the ground that has WR1AKG on it. We started to collect money and put up a Roan 25 tower right outside the chicken coops, and we were really on our way. We had a 4-bay collinear antenna. In 1977, we moved from there just up the street to here. Out in the garage, there's a closet, and the town let us move into that closet and put our tower up against the building here, right where the tower that's there now. We put up our Roan 25. We got into this firehouse, I think, largely because of Ernie Frattini. He was always our ally, and he would do things subtly, somehow within the politics of the town, and suddenly the town would say, oh yeah, you can move to the firehouse, no problem. And I have to give all of that credit to Ernie.
Don't forget Steve Hackey.
Yeah, I didn't know Steve, you did.
Yeah, he was the assistant fire chief, and he was on our side too. As a matter of fact, when we put the tower up, we had to put the bracket at the peak of the roof, and he got on the radio and says, get me ladder 1 up here. He brought the fire department ladder up here, climbed the ladder, and bolted in the bracket, and that's the beginning of the tower.
Yeah,
So it was good.
One day that was, it must have cost the town $5 million.
didn't Steve have a call sign too?
W1KKF.
Oh, yeah, Steve was
He just
very
passed
active.
away
Yeah,
last year.
he just died
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah, son of a gun. Okay,
Yeah.
Me and Mike took down his tower in his house last fall.
It's quite a station.
Yeah, he had a lot of stuff.
at the time, in 1979, we moved into this firehouse, we were still on 14703. And Tom just decided that that was the frequency to go on. He had no coordination or anything.
Right, just like now.
Almost. And it turned out there was a repeater on Long Island that could hear us every once in a while. So we've been blessed to have some good friends. In 1979, Jerry Molliver, K1TGX from Cheshire, had a coordination for 14736. And he wasn't going to actually use it. Initially, he thought he would put a repeater up, but then he decided he wasn't going to use it, and he said, would you guys like it? And Eric applied to the coordinating body. At that time, the coordinating body was the Tri-State Amateur Radio Club or something like that out of New Jersey. And they were coordinating repeaters for all of New England, New York, and New Jersey. A tough task, if you ask me. So they were very easy to deal with because, you're so far away here in Wallingford. And when we asked for the coordination, they said, okay, fine. So they transferred the 14736 to us, and the repeater went on the air in 79 on 36. In 2000, we built a new repeater, which is actually the one we're using right now. In 2001, we moved to the water tower. The reason for the move was the town suddenly discovered how wonderful this tower was. And they wanted to put their stuff on the tower. And they thought the town owned the tower, and we said, no, we own that tower. So they said, okay, take it down, and we're gonna put in our own, and that's basically what happened. So our good friend Ernie Frattini again went to work and got us into the water tower. At that time, in 2001, Sprint wanted a piece of that water tower and was offering big money to the town to move into that water tower. And Ernie had worked it so that the Sprint guys would help put our antennas up on top of the water tower. So it was a win-win situation to move to the water tower. They did the work, and all we had to do was move in our cabinet into the base of the water tower. Let's see.
What's the height of that water tower?
I'll get to that when I show you pictures of it. I've got the stuff on that slide. In 2009, the town wanted insurance on our repeater, basically liability, so it wouldn't burn down the water tower, or whatever the case may be. So they wanted insurance, and obviously that would have been a tremendous expense for us. So in 2009, we merged with the Narrated Amateur Radio Club and let their equipment insurance cover our repeater. So that was how we got around that wrinkle. In 2012, we put in a RM50M power supply, a 50 amp. We were using a 35, and that was not enough. I mean, even though the amplifier was only running 17 amps, it was just too much constant use for a 35 to stand it. So we went to a 50 amp supply. It's a nice supply, it's rack mount with power supply meters on it. The repeater currently has a board of directors, 5 people, myself, John K1VDF, Dan W1DMM, Rich WA1TRY, and our treasurer is K1LHL Mike. Okay, let me, John, do you have anything you want to add at this point?
No, not so far. I'm surprised you had all those dates.
Yeah,
Quite a span of stuff.
yeah, there's a ton of pieces of paper. You know how that is. You go through all these pieces of paper, and I came up with all of these dates. Okay, I asked him if I could use it. Basically, this is a picture of Masonic, Ashler Village. And there's apartment 102. This is Mohawk Drive, and we thought it might be this house, we thought it might be here, and then of course it identified itself and we found out where it was. To give you an idea what we're looking at here, this is the Wilbur Cross. This is the Sunoco station here. This is the Central Fire Headquarters, and here's the entrance into Masonic. And if we go up, I believe this is West Ridge Road. That's where this complex number 10 is. And that was where the interference was coming from a couple of weeks ago.
Hey, Bill?
Yeah,
I drew that circle based on the beam coordinates that everybody had. We had 5 beam headers for different people.
Yeah.
John, and Steve, and another John, LIP. And just on the beam coordinates from stations a mile or more away, we were able to narrow it down to that area.
yeah. It seemed that about 5 guys had come up with that it was in that complex. So we were just about to go knocking on doors when it identified itself and it went away.
How long was it keyed up for?
Oh, about 4 days.
Well, once we further recorded Stu, and Bob got a hold of the security.
Yeah, Bob GYZ, do you want to tell it?
Yeah, we all got close, but since there was no exterior antenna, it was difficult to find. And the former police lieutenant who was working in the administration department there, I happened to just bump into him. We go back many, many years. And I told him why I was there, and he said, "I'll help you find it." And he took it upon himself to find a way to do it without knocking on a lot of doors. And he used the maintenance people that go into those houses there and do work. And he asked them, "Do you know anybody that's got a two-way radio?" And he says, "I know." And it turned out that the fellow there he was born in 1929, so it makes him about 86. And he told the lieutenant that he had some people there that took away a lot of his equipment and left him the 2-meter rig, which happened to be, the microphone was in a key position because of the way it was positioned on his desk. And that's really the end of the story there. He cleared it up. The lieutenant called me and asked for confirmation. When he keyed the mic, he heard the carrier in my rig at my house, and he unkeyed it, it disappeared. He says, "This is the one," and he called it a day.
Bob, would you say that was a desk microphone?
I didn't see it. I
Okay,
didn't ask.
okay, we've encountered that before. I'll talk about that later.
Is that a handheld?
Yeah,
Battery? On battery?
no, it was plugged in the wall.
Oh, handheld plug or?
No, it wasn't a handheld.
Oh, I thought it was a hand, okay.
No, I guess we can't get any more info. The guy was very embarrassed, and I guess he pleaded not to say who he was, and
Oh,
so we just said, oh, it's fixed, we don't care.
right.
Of course, we should have found out what kind of rig he had. If something could stay keyed down for 4 days and still operate, that's a good
Well,
rig.
we found that before. As I said, I'll get to that. Okay, here's the, this is Gaylord Road. After you go past the main entrance of the old building, the road makes a curve to the west. And that's where we are right here. We're just on that curve. And if I were to expand this, you can see the water tower that we're in.
Ah, there you go.
Takes 1 million gallons.
It's actually a donut. The staircase goes up the center of the donut of water.
But we don't.
This is from across the street in the baseball fields. And let me, now I can tell you all that info. The top of the tank is 135 feet above ground, and ground is at 360 feet above sea level. The top of the antenna is at 175 feet above ground, which works out to be 535 feet above sea level. Now this diving bell is the way Sprint wanted to get out of the top of that tower. So they installed that onto the tower. And it actually has a door that opens like a closet door, and they, after climbing up the ladder, they can open the door and step out onto the top of the water tower. This is this Sprint antenna system, and this is our antenna here. It's just a little over 20 feet tall. It's a cell wave 220, I believe. Yeah, that's-
PD 220.
I'm sorry?
PD 220.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right.
It's a collinear antenna. Inside of it's all sections of coax stacked on top of each other, and the whole thing is encapsulated in a fiberglass radome.
They used to call it the station master?
Yeah, it was at one time a station master. It's in the family.
Who manufactured that antenna?
That's a cell wave.
Cell
Used to be Phelps
I
Dodge.
was gonna say, that's what else that in the old days.
Okay.
Station house.
Yeah, well, the one, we purchased it from Cell Wave, so.
There's a lot of business companies that'll be mentioned in it.
Okay, move on to the next slide. This is inside the water tower. The front door has been removed off the repeater cabinet. The cabinet has casters on it, so it does roll around fairly easily. These are the duplexes. There's 2 on transmit and 2 on receive. This is the repeater itself. A receiver, transmitter, power supply, and controller are all in this chassis. This is a Aztec 30 amp power supply to power a TPL amplifier. Now, this is old knowledge. We now have a new amplifier from Crescend, which is quite a nice amp.
Is that the old power supply or no?
That power supply is also gone.
Yeah.
What brand is the controller and receiver?
This is a computer automation technology, a CAT 1000. controller is in this, in this repeater. Okay, let me be sure I've got the right. Okay, over here to the right is the battery case. It's about the size of a car battery. It's a deep discharge marine type battery. And it is under a trickle charge from the repeater. If power gets interrupted, a relay switches the battery in. And theoretically, at that point, you don't have your amp on anymore, just the raw exciter. And theoretically, it should run for a weekday.
So about 5 watts or something?
10 watts, actually.
Does Sprint have emergency power there too?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I believe they do. Also, I think the town has a socket and a transfer switch on this water tower, so they intend on powering the water tower. The nice thing about being in this water tower is that it's heated to 50 degrees at all times. Well, in the summertime, it gets a little warmer.
You can see how old this picture is, I could actually walk.
This is the front door. Obviously, we've taken it off the cabinet. We asked the water guys to attach a piece of copper to this water pipe, and so they took one of those big bolts out that you see, and they put that, it's about a 4-inch square piece of copper up against the pipe. They scraped the pipe down to bare metal and put that copper plate there. And this wire here is a number 6 wire, and it grounds the repeater to this pipe. When that pipe goes through that wall, it then turns 90 degrees straight down into the earth and delivers to the town of Wallingford. So that's our grounding system, the water system for the town of Wallingford. Okay, we're at,
And this is when it goes out too, it also attaches to the outside of the tower, the water tank.
yeah, this is all steel wall, so that's all connected to that pipe too.
It's funny, when you're in there, you don't really get the impression you're in a tank. It's like you're in a room. Of course, it's set up that way anyways, but.
This is the repeater in my basement. We have to put the new amplifier in. This is the new amp here. It's from Crescend, and we've owned that for, let's see if I have that.
Yeah.
2007 was when we bought that.
How heavy is that, Bill?
What, the amp?
The whole thing?
The cabinet?
Yeah, everything within everything in it.
Well, it would take a lot of sweat to lift it and carry it around. But we did.
How much power output is the repeater?
The amplifier is 100 watts. The basic repeater is 10. So driving that Crescend to 100 watts.
So we're listening to 100 watts.
Yeah, except that it's losing something. It goes by hardline from the repeater all the way up to the antenna on the roof. And I don't know, what did we figure we were losing there, John?
About dB and a half, I think.
So about 85 watts gets to the antenna, something like that. The antenna,
The
that,
loss of the duplexers too.
yeah, and there's also gain in the antenna.
Yeah. 5.6.
Also at that time, the reason it was in my basement was we had to send the receiver back to the manufacturer because it was making some noise of its own. It was oscillating. And you'll get to see that in just a moment.
Is that your IFR there?
That's, yeah, right here, this is the IFR.
That's yours?
Not mine. I guess we'd have to say it's John's.
That's yours.
PDFs. Well, we're thankful to have it. Okay. This is part of the black magic of of a 2-meter repeater, or any repeater actually. These are the duplexer cans. The two on the left are the transmit frequency, and the two on the right are the receive frequency. And they not only suck out the frequency that the other can is on, they also amplify the frequency that they're trying to pass. So when you
Pass it, they don't amplify.
right, it passes and then attenuates quickly, but has a suck out on the other frequency. So the total effect of receive to transmit is 80 dB. So it's a tremendous amount of attenuation between the input and the transmit frequency. And also, to me, I'm just flabbergasted by the black magic. The antenna can hear a very weak signal while it's transmitting 100 watts. To me, that just boggles my mind.
You gonna teach us how to tune a duplexer tonight?
Oh, I don't think so.
No.
Is that hardline coax?
No.
No, that's RG214, which is double shielded 213.
Silver plate.
Yes,
One of
silver
the
flake.
biggest problems we have to make sure is that we don't get any portion of RF from transmit into receive. The thing will sit there and spit like a son of a gun if you get RF into the receiver. So you have to have all these like double shielded coax and hardline coax and duplexers. And its total purpose is to keep the transmit out of the receive. Besides getting the RF to the antenna.
And this is why in the early days, when we were in the chicken coop, we were getting a lot of transmitter into the receiver. And Tom then called the repeater Rosemary's Baby. And there are people who every once in a while say to me, "Is that Rosemary's Baby?" So some people still remember that.
Yep.
Let's see.
These cavities are made by, well, Wacom Corporation out of Waco, Texas, but another one on the list of unemployed. They got bought out.
There's one other piece of black magic here. You notice the coax connector. This is the transmit. There's 100 watts coming out here to go to the antenna. This is the receive input here. There's a barrel connector, obviously a T connector and a barrel connector. And then we have two other coaxes. This is the coax running up through a hole in the floor of the cabinet to the hard line that goes to the roof. This piece of coax, this is the black magic piece of coax. It's a quarter wave piece of coax with this end, the shield and the center conductor are shorted together, and there's a solder lug soldered on the end of the coax. It attaches to the ground bus on the side of the cabinet. So that piece of coax is a quarter wave. As you probably know, a quarter wave on 2 meters is about 19 inches. But because it's in coax, the velocity factor makes it only about a foot long. So here's a piece of coax, a foot long, shorted at one end. And it's right on, as you can see, the transmit and receive signal. Yet, because it's a dead short, a quarter wave away, it's a complete open. So
What's
why
the
did,
purpose of that?
what's the purpose? Yeah. Purpose is, when you get struck by lightning, it's a dead short to ground.
Oh,
However, some people say lightning is AC, not DC. So that means 2 meters and odd multiples of 2 meters would get through, if that's true. I don't know. So far we've been pretty lucky. But that's what that piece of coax is for. It's for lightning protection.
Has the tower ever been struck since we've had our antenna there?
I don't know if the tower's been struck, but we've been hit by lightning, whether it was trees nearby or something. And we've had problems with our phone patch. There's an antique, we don't do that anymore, but Yeah, we had problems with the auto patch. But so far, the repeater itself seemed to be working okay.
Is that's not common practice, is that something you guys thought up to do?
Gee, I don't know, John, I thought it was common practice.
Is it common?
Yeah, it became popular about 6-7 years ago in the mobile field.
Oh,
But I think, you know, if you think about it, it's gotta be like black magic, you know, dead short,
that's a good idea.
but it works, it's amazing. Okay, next one is, this is the repeater cabinet. It has a small speaker, and this controls the audio to the speaker. We can actually listen to the input of the repeater. Here's audio level and squelch on the repeater, power to the repeater, although if it's got its battery connected, you could throw this switch and it would still stay active. This is a inhibit switch so that the transmitter does not go on the air. This meter is an S meter or a deviation meter. We can actually measure deviation, or the exciter relative output. This is a power supply, 7 amps full scale on this particular meter here. Okay, let me see if I've got everything here.
Given the environment that it works in, it works pretty well without any issues. It's not the cleanest thing in the
Now
world.
you notice that this is a different repeater, and indeed it is. This is the very first repeater that we built, and we've programmed the ID on this thing to say WRA auxiliary repeater. And if we ever need to do some repairs on the current repeater, we take it out and put this one in. It'll do everything that the other one will do, except it doesn't have a clock. But this one is made with a Spectrum transmitter, and it has the capability of running 30 watts, so it doesn't actually need to have a linear amp after it. The receiver on this is a GE Master Pro, and that's what was in police cars, I guess, what, 20 years ago? And the receiver is really very nicely made. I must say, it has copper boxes for every section, so that it was very well shielded.
Is that our backup repeater?
Yeah, basically, yeah, this is in my basement. So if something were to go wrong, we could just slap this one in and get this one on the air.
And you said that has an amplifier, or we use the one that's currently?
The amplifier that's built into this thing will run 30 watts.
Oh, 30 watts.
So it's disabled right now so that it puts out 10, and then we use our regular amplifier to go to 100.
Geez, Bill, if you had a tower in your yard, you could run that backup repeater right from your house.
I know. Okay.
You got a spare set of cans too, or the?
No,
one set?
no, this is just put in place in the
Okay.
cabinet because we were going to send the receiver out for repair. So that's what we did, and then we took it back to the water tower and installed it until the receiver came back. This uses an RC85, which is a advanced computer controls controller. It operates about the same as the CAT 1000.
Now, the controller is basically a PC, right?
Yes,
Yes.
and I've got a picture of that coming up. Okay, let me see, 10. This is our current repeater. These are from a company called Kendacom, which then became Advanced Communication Systems. We bought their transmitter and receiver. This is the transmitter here, the receiver. This is an Aztec 10 amp power supply, linear supply. Telephone line input to the controller. And of course, when auto patch was king, that was very important.
Bill, is that crystal control?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, the crystal is baked. There's a small heating chamber to keep the crystal at a constant temperature all the time. These red and black terminals here for 12 volts, that's the battery, are ground, AC, and a fuse. Okay, let's see, next.
We bought the high stability option for that thing, I think it's 0.0001 parts per million.
It does seem to stay on frequency well, that's for sure. Okay, number 12.
So we can use that instead of WWV to set up our stuff.
Not quite.
Needs a few more zeros to be a standard.
Okay, here we go. This is the underside of the current repeater. This is an 80C 188, I believe.
Yes.
You know those?
Very well, that's like about 25 years old.
Yeah, that's, at the time, that was state of the art. So what this, this entire big board here is the controller, and it keeps time. It, let's see, ADC 188. I said that right. It keeps time, audio mixing, the phone in and out. We have a small DVR board that you can see there. And we have a tone board also to transmit the tone. There's a mic amplifier.
That does the time announcement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Almost everything on the jazzy side comes out of that thing.
There's a small relay here that switches from 110 AC to 12 volts. Switching the battery into the controller. And that is, let's see, number 13. Okay, now here's, this is our receiver. At the time, in 2007, it was having some oscillations and we were wondering where that noise was coming from. It would bring up the repeater. There it is after it's been repaired. Now, I can tell that this coil and this coil are brand new. I'll go back. See, they were here and here before. These round cans are helical resonators, which are basically filters. So each section in the IF strip has a filter. Supposedly that's the latest and greatest. However, the receiver had some oscillations which they offered to fix for free, so thank goodness that happened.
Did they tell you what they did to it?
Yes.
What did they do?
You know, they changed some coils and they didn't get into too much detail, but apparently they'd had many complaints about it. And I have to say, from that day forward, we've never heard a fart come out of the repeater.
That's the receiver.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, what did the receiver and what did the transmitter cost when you bought the original?
Oh gosh, one thing I don't know.
They're about $200 a piece.
There you go.
Pretty cheap.
Yeah, it is, not too bad. The most expensive thing is the duplex, that was like. almost-
Actually, that amplifier also, the Crescend amplifier, was about $1,500. This was for me so that I'd know how to hook the thing back up when it came back.
Yeah. So altogether, you've got about probably what, $2,000 wound up into the repeater.
Yeah, probably a little more than that. Here's the copper bus This is a 1/4 inch thick piece of copper, and you can see how big the bolts are that we're using to tie parts into the ground. And that's where that piece of coax comes up and gets bolted there too.
And Tony, I think the cabinet came out of George Street. It was a P10 cabinet.
Jeez.
Somebody ripped it off from the phone company.
There's another picture of that copper plate. And you can see it here. This is looking in through the back door. Over here we have obviously 110 volt outlets, which are filtered by this large AC filter here.
Again, trying to keep the noise to a minimum.
This is antique. I'm sorry, it's not antique. This is the crescendo amplifier over here. We're looking at the side of the cabinet to an RM35 power supply, 35 amp,
That's the old one.
the old one. This is a relay which is controlled by a twisted pair from the controller. And we could get, if we got the relay to drop out, then there'd be no power to the amplifier and we would just run in low power. So we would do that from time to time for test purposes.
What do you mean twisted pair to the relay? What do you mean by that? You mean
To the
remotely-
controller,
Remotely,
yeah.
remotely control the relay
Yeah,
through the phone line?
through the phone line, yeah.
Oh, you had a leased line?
The same one that we were using for AutoPads.
It's all from auto pay.
Yeah,
Oh,
Today, we don't have that,
okay.
right?
Okay.
there's a good picture of the crescendo amplifier. Everything's in this small box here, which is about 6 inches square by an inch thick. But this huge heatsink runs the entire 19 inches of the rack. This fan makes some noise, I must say. And it comes on every time the amplifier comes on. So I have to attribute that to the reason that the amplifier has been in place for 10 years and has run 100 watts without, why am I telling you that?
The fan's parents are gonna break next.
Got a little bit of loss on those adapters there, don't you?
Probably so.
And the PL259.
Yep. But you know, when you're up at 100 watts, and you lose 10 watts, it's not too bad.
Better than building an engine.
Okay, and let's see. Looking in from the back of the repeater, here again, this is a filter for the AC line. This is another filter that we use. We ran the phone line through this also, so that any lightning or what have you on the phone line would be shorted to ground, hopefully.
Is the phone line still hooked up, Bill?
Yeah, it has to be. We have to have control. According to the FCC, we have to have something more than just its input frequency to control it. So we use the telephone line. Okay.
You couldn't use touch tones to control the repeater?
Yeah,
I mean, through the input to the receiver?
yeah.
Instead of the phone line?
Oh, I see. what
Radio
you're-
controls.
Yeah, we can.
You could do
In
that.
fact, we do that, and because it's more convenient.
Right.
But we have to have the phone line control because of the FCC. They require that.
Oh, so they don't recognize radio controls for the repeater?
Not on its input.
It has to be a phone line.
If you had a 450 link, you
If you had another link receiver,
Okay.
then
That's
you're
it.
okay.
Okay.
They want something other than the input to
Right.
the repeater.
Right.
Here's a question, Bill. Is it legal to control it through a cell phone? Because the cell phone is there and have a cell phone receiver there, rather than a regular telephone line?
Gosh, how would you do that? I don't know how you would put up a cell phone receiver.
Well, just, like, have a cell phone hooked up to the, where phone line will be coming in.
They specialize in one.
And
You still have to pay for the cell phone service up at the site anyway, so it's probably gonna be about the same price for the phone line. and
Well,
cell phone.
fortunately, the phone line is a Wallingford phone line. Okay.
So you could turn, excuse me, you could turn on the phone patch if you wanted to then, since you have a phone line,
Yes.
but you got.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, we could use the phone
But
patch,
it's shut off.
but it's shut off, yeah.
The only problem with that, especially when it's from a town, every once in a while, you get someone who looks at a bill, goes, look at this, look at this, look at,
Yeah,
man, look at this, there's no calls going out on this thing. Have it disconnected. So it's almost like you want to use it periodically to make sure there's some calls going out.
Well, we've explained the FCC requirement, period, and obviously they say, oh, then we understand.
As soon
Don't
as they
they
hear
use phone
FCC,
lines
it's
for
okay.
telemetry too, for the water tower?
I'm sorry, Eric,
Don't they use phone lines for telemetry to the water tower, so, they can monitor that?
I'm not understanding your question.
No, he's saying that.
They already have phone lines at the water tower, because they have to get a signal back to the control room of the water department.
I don't know.
I don't know how it works either. We don't have a lot of interface with the water company.
Yeah, in order to get in the tower, I have to make basically an appointment with the, one of the guys at the water department. And it's not too much of a problem as long as we say, hey, tomorrow we'd like to get up there. And they say, what time? And a guy meets us and opens the door and lets us in.
Stays.
Sometimes he stays. This is the old TPL amplifier. It's 100 watts. It lost its finals. And we had a fan always blowing on the fins of that amplifier. So this is an old picture. Here, John's got an attenuator box and he's measuring the sensitivity of, I think he was measuring the duplexers.
Yeah, I think we were tuning duplexes on
And we used to sprinkle each other with holy water before we dared touch the duplexer. And that's about it. Let's see, I got a picture of the IFR. What do you want to say about this thing, John?
Well, it's quite obsolete now.
But it does levels,
Yeah.
frequencies, spectrum analyzer.
It generates RF, it allows you to see what's on frequency, and a lot of different things. That helpful thing.
We also have an extra can that we can use. This was when we were chasing the noise that was coming from the receiver. We thought it was coming external. And so we bought another filter, and we still own that. And that's it.
So, question on the, how you set up the PL tones? So is
Okay.
that done in the controller?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's,
that's control.
yeah, that's done by the controller. There is a tone board. It's about an inch square.
That's the one that was in front of the controller that was sitting off to the side on the, okay, got it, yeah.
Yeah, and that generates 162.2.
Now, do we, I can't remember now, do we have that turned on or off? or-
It's on. Yeah, let me get to that.
Yep.
Okay, the controller is responsible for various timers. The first one is the Kerchunk timer, and that basically prevents people from doing this, trying to see if the repeater's working.
Which was great sport in the early days.
So it's only 3/4 of a second. If you held the mic for 3/4 of a second, then the repeater would come up. But the reason I tell you all that is because a lot of guys come on and mash the microphone and say K1 XYZ, and what comes out is YZ, listening, because the kerchunk filter cut the beginning off. So the answer to that is take a breath. Count to 3 before you start talking.
Now, is the Kerchunk timer on the first Kerchunk, or, and then it goes back to normal, or is it
If
always?
it's
always
just, if the
3/4?
repeater's not on the air,
Right,
if-
well, once it gets on the air, then.
then the kerchunk filter's
Okay,
gone.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it's when it's not on the air. The timer, there is a timeout timer which is 3 minutes. So if you were to talk for 3 minutes, the repeater would eventually go off the air. And that's what happened to us a couple of weeks ago, that
Okay.
signal was holding the repeater up, and after 3 minutes, it goes off the air. Now, to reset that timer, the input to the repeater needs to hear 3/4 of a second of silence. No RF on the input to the repeater for 3/4 of a second. Other repeaters put a beep there after the 3/4 of a second. We just tell you, just wait before you mash the mic. If you don't, then obviously the 3-minute timer is still going. And eventually, you time out.
Has it only been 3 minutes? So
Yeah.
would you, or extend it for WA1TRY?
Yeah, the champion of timing out the repeater.
By the way, I don't know where it came from, but someone said if you time out the repeater, you owe everybody listening a beer.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where that came from, but it's,
Who has the tape spill?
yes. Okay, when you're finished with the repeater, it hangs for about 6 seconds before the carrier drops.
And if you want to release it to reset the timers, don't hold it up. I know the KD1AV repeater, you gotta hold the key down for 12 seconds to get all those different repeaters to come up. Ours is only 3/4 of a second, so.
Yeah, not 12 seconds, but it's a lot.
And it's actually bad for the repeater, because the more you hold up the amplifier, the more it burns up.
Well, I think it's tough usage on the amplifier to have it go off the air and then instantly come back on again, and then go off the air, and then come on again. When new people who first come to the repeater, this is what they do. They figure they have to let it drop in order for it to reset. But the answer is 3/4 of a second, it resets. The CWID happens every 6 minutes when the repeater's in use. If it's not in use, you don't hear the CWID. The voice synthesizer is what you hear at that time. And the voice synthesizer will not speak if there's an input in the repeater. If the repeater is hearing a signal, the voice synthesizer will not speak. And that's just because you're both at the same volume and you don't want the synthesized voice to be covering up your transmission.
Some repeaters don't do that.
Pardon?
Some repeaters don't do that.
Oh, they just let it talk over you?
Oh, yeah.
KD1AV.
Yeah, and the one in Prospect, I forgot what that one is.
1.8.
What is it? The morning.
So basically, you can't talk over the voice synthesizer. It just shuts right up, instantly stops talking. And then the CWID will start every 6 minutes. It's probably a good idea when you hear the CWID to identify yourself, because you got to do it in 10 minutes anyway, so 6 minutes is a nice reminder.
These controllers are all similar, but they're not exactly
We have a couple of features that you can use. Keypad test, although if we don't have auto patch, there's probably not much need in doing that. But if you send the number 5 and then another key or other keys, the repeater will, in synthesized voice, read back the other keys. So if I sent 5, 1, 2, 3, the repeater would say, keypad test, 1, 2, 3. Okay, but since we're not making auto patch anymore, it's probably a mute point. Something else we have is if you send 400 to the repeater, it'll give you the time. Voice synthesizer will tell you what time it is. The PL tone is on the output and it's 162.2. And we did that because some of our users could hear New York City or Boston. And so if they tone decode in their receiver, they don't hear New York City or Boston.
How long does the 162 frequency stay active during the whole time the transmitter's on?
Yeah,
Because I hear that on my Kendall.
yeah, some people say, gee, there's a hum on this repeater.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fault of the receiver. It should not hear subaudible tones.
Yeah, it hears it. My handy-talkie doesn't, but my Kenwood TS2000 does.
Hmm.
Well, if they turn on a tone decode on their receiver, they won't hear it.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, turn on.
Yeah, I don't have it on right now for our repeater.
Well, TS2000 is a different kind of rig than a handheld or a mobile rig, which is made for 2 meters only.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why the filtering in a mobile rig should be enough to kill the 162.2.
I used to hear it on my Alinco when I had it, my little Alinco handheld all the time.
Yeah, one of the older ones that had it, they had blockage.
You can add a capacitor in there if you know where to put it, to do a little more filtering and it'll go away.
Why'd you pick such a high frequency tone? Why'd you go-
I don't know, why did we pick that there?
That was the frequency for the Area 2 high band network. So it did it to be consistent back in the days before regional programmable. It was just easier.
But that was the same as the town.
But yeah, the town and the Area 2, which is all the 22 or whatever towns in the Area 2. They have around 153.8. And like Bertie had a radio that had 153.8, 153.98 plus the other radio. It was just easier to have everything.
Well, we can turn on the input for receivers so that you have to use the tone to get the repeater. And we've done that extremely rarely. If there's an opening on 2 meters and the repeater's being brought up by some guy in Philadelphia, then we probably would turn on the tone.
Or if you couldn't find a guy in the sonic home, you could turn the tone.
Well, that wouldn't work, John.
That would work?
No. His signal was so strong that
Oh, okay.
only 1 or 2 guys would be able to use the repeater. Everybody else, he would just cover them up anyway.
Do you have an outside antenna?
Don't know. Like I said, when we found him and he said, please don't tell anybody, I'm sorry, and everybody said, okay.
It's only a mile away from the repeater.
Okay, okay, resetting the timeout timer is considered poor etiquette. So if you've got to talk more than 3 minutes, you want to get on WCBS or some other TV station,
Or 5.2?
or go with Donald Trump. To start a conversation, all you have to do is just give your call sign and say that you're listening. If a lot of times that's a very short transmission, W1KKF listening, and maybe people won't hear it, and you may not get anybody to come back to you, but you could make it a little longer. Can someone give me a signal report, please? This is W1KKF. Or something like that. To join a conversation, just give your call sign when the person talking at this time stops. So during that point where they're trying to reset the timer, you leave your call sign. The etiquette for that is that you can, the next guy in line would say, W1XYZ recognized, and then go on with his transmission, and then pass it to W1XYZ. He gets his turn then. Okay, if you need the repeater to make a call, it's advisable that during the break you say, "Call please," and people realize you really need the repeater. If it's an emergency, then you say break. Don't ever use break when there's no emergency. Let me talk about multi radios. Multi-band, multi-mode radios, such as a TS-2000. These have been our pain in the butt because people have bought desk microphones, the kind you push on the button to transmit. And we had one of those, just one, time out the repeater 3 times. The wife would get the mail, throw it on the desk, and that was it. From that point on, the repeater would be timed out. And it was funny, you know, we'd hear the phone ringing while we're calling the guy saying, "Hey, your mic has got us timed out again." And I offered to buy the mic, but the guy won't sell it to me.
They have a lock button on it too.
Yeah. So the point is, if you have a multi radio, please understand that it's very easy with a desk mic to time out the repeater. I have a feeling the guy in 102 had a desk mic, and something was laying on that mic. Another thing with multi rigs is Vox. Some people like to use Vox. I would advise you not to use Vox on a 2-meter repeater. We had a guy who saw the UPS guy coming, put his dog in the ham shack and closed the door. And the dog called CQ on the repeater.
Either that or the dog park and,
If you could entertain it, you're having a repeater.
We have,
It's surprising to me that that guy had his rig turned on. I turned my rig off.
Yeah.
And
this is just, you know, a word to the wise.
Next month, the activity would be barking dog.
We do have a repeater website, which is part of the Narrated Amateur Radio Club website. And there's several articles in there on repeater etiquette. And there is a set of slides that are taken from the top of the water tower, 360 degrees, if you'd like to see what you can see from on top of that water tower. And it is pretty amazing because you're actually looking into Narrated. You can see East Main Street in Narrated. You can see Long Island Sound. I mean, it's just from the top of that tower, it's beautiful. Any questions?
Hey, Bill,
Yeah.
just as Throwback Thursday, it just brought back to mind, when we first put the auto patch on there, one of our ham members by the call of K1LHO was so enamored with it that he would, the daily entertainment was his daily phone call to his wife, who hated ham
Oh, the
radio.
other day we had.
She would call him every name in the book, and half of them were Jewish, you know, you figured out they weren't nice. But almost every day until somebody finally told him not to call.
Yeah, that was funny. She,
That was before there was cell phones.
Yeah.
Once we got cell phones, she was happy.
Hey,
She
Bill,
was.
reference to a circulator, is that the duplexer connection? On a repeater like that?
is that
Circulator?
Circulators are a different device. That's where you're trying to combine like 2 transmitters together. It's a similar device, but different, it's used for a different purpose.
Is that for intermod prevention at a repeater site?
Yeah, in
Not
microwave,
tap
it's-
site,
microwave is used to add multiple transmitters into the same waveguide.
I don't know if we could describe the duplexers. They're basically a silver-plated can with a rod that's silver-plated that we can, you saw the knobs on the top, we can adjust the length of that rod into the silver-plated can. And what it looks like is a very, very sharp filter.
It's a cavity.
It's a quarter wave cavity. It's made of Invar. The material's Invar because it has a almost zero temperature coefficient for, when they first came out with the duplexers, they would drift by temperature. So you'd be out there talking, next thing you know, you have all kinds of noise in the receiver from the transmitter because the cavity drifted.
We learned a lot over the years until finally today the repeater sounds good. It doesn't spit anymore, and like in the old days. So it's come a long way.
I had home crew transfer to get 14 meters up to 134. And I built a cavity out of tomato juice can with a copper pipe in it, loop on each side, and capacitor from the pipe to outside of the can. And it really was sharp.
You know, I was wondering what we paid for those. Was that about $1,000?
Well, at different times, different amounts, but yeah, they're quite expensive. They look like scuba tanks. And the 2 meter ones are like scuba tanks. The ones for 6 meter are like water tanks. Their length is determined by the frequencies. They're pretty big. And then of course you get 432 and they're like 6 inches long.
Today, is anybody building repeaters and instead of using the duplexers, are they doing it with software?
No.
No, there are repeaters that don't use duplexers where they separate the receiver and the transmitter.
Yeah, split sites. That's kind of an old
The
way to
antennas
do it.
are usually one above the other.
Ideally, you want to do it vertically.
And that works on 450, but not very well on 2, and especially not on 6.
No, I guess some guys were successful on 2 meters, but they have to use some pretty
You gotta have a TV tower. to do
pretty
that.
tall towers to separate the
Separate
receiver
the
from the
antennas.
transmitter.
Speaking of frequency in duplexers, the one for PD used to have a low band repeater, and their duplexers are huge.
Like I said, water tanks.
Yeah.
We had a small club down at WELI, near Towers Park, and there was a group of us who used to be assistant engineers there. We were really the call show guys who screened all the calls, we were screeners and then read the meters, and that was it. But we had a little club. We had a little repeater for a while. Unfortunately, the receiver was on one house, the transmitter was on the other, and we needed a link. We happened to find these two-way radios on 450. Hey, this is perfect. Over it goes. Until a taxi cab company from Stanford was on the same frequency. We weren't supposed to be using those, but it worked. Two separate locations.
Yeah.
How is 3.6 and 3.45 getting along lately?
I think we're doing fine. Politically, we're not, but otherwise, yeah, we're doing fine as far as coexisting, yeah.
We never really did have any interference with Dana.
I thought 3.45 was getting into 3.6.
No.
Oh, we did have 345 users in some.
That's right, they're using high power up in Bradley.
In order to get to their repeater, they have to run 100 watts in their car.
Okay, and they were bleeding over.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, you turn a PL on the receiver, and that'll kill that.
that'll kill that, that's right. That's why, as I always say, PL makes for lousy neighbors. That's a perfect example.
No, it makes for a good neighbor. you turn the PL on, you would have interference problems.
Oh, yeah.
No, you just have noise.
And radio there.
Oh, that's okay, that's right, it's spilling up, it's splattering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it, you know, there's a bunch of us who used to work there, and we all